Hello, this is Eric Stewart with Solo Luna Yoga, and today I'm going to talk about specific intent as it relates to practice. So a couple months ago, I was talking about ways to develop consistency with practice, and one of the things that I mentioned was using very general intent in a very quick manner, doing it a few times a day potentially. And it could be with practice, it could be with other things, like if I want to get good sleep, I might just tell myself sleep. And if I want to practice, I might say, I'm going to practice. And this is something that I do in the morning, in the shower, in the evening, and at different times of day. It depends on letting it go. The letting go part of it is an important part of it. So we hold it, we make the intent, and then let it go. And the letting it go is like throwing out a seed into the universe. And if I'm doing this intent, I'm not precious about it. I don't want to invest a lot of emotional energy into it. It's not emotionless, but it's just casting seeds, and some of those seeds sprout. Making the intent and letting it go is key to that little practice. But sometimes specificity is what's needed and is really valuable. And one reason for that is that there's a tendency that is a very human tendency to not want to be pinned down, to want to have options, to want to keep our options open. And there's an element within that that's useful and valuable and important, so we don't want to just squash that completely. But what it often ends up causing, if it's allowed to really run more fully, is that wanting to not be pinned down, that wanting to keep our options open, often means we just don't do anything or get scattered and get dispersed. So being specific about our intent is really important in addressing this. And the general kind of intent and the more specific intent are not contradictory to one another. They really work hand in hand. And you can consider this as a continuum. So there can be specificity of intent that is more and more specific. And sometimes we need that. Sometimes we need moderately specific intent. So on the moderate end of things, I'll give an example. One thing that I look at in my own practice is the balance of activities that are more still. In terms of asana, that might be staying for long periods of time in asana, and activities that involve more movement, moving from one asana to another with higher tempo. And I want both of these things in my practice. And right there, there's an organizing structure. And I can be aware of that and have, for lack of a better word, plans to make sure that that goes into the practice that I'm doing, and that there's a balance, there's a dynamic exchange between those two different qualities of practice. And so I can always be checking in with myself to assess the balance of those different qualities. That's just one example. Then I might be more specific further in terms of, okay, what is the nature of those higher tempo practices? What specific asanas might I be doing that I'm spending longer periods of time in? And there's so much variety and diversity within the world of practices that this allows, on the one hand, constant newness and possibility, and freshness. But on the other hand, there's enough structure that we stay consistent. And so that freshness, that side of it, is a way to feed the parts of ourselves that feel like we need, we don't want to be tied down. It's because if that voice isn't given something, it will tend to take over and just cause us to get dispersed. And practice is not so satisfying when that's the case. So a way to think about this is this continuum of general to specific. And general intent can be just as simple as I'm going to practice. And it can be done a lot, often during the day. And that can become a way to touch into practice that's not burdensome or onerous. And then other times, this requires a little more attention, a little more energy devoted to it. We can consider and think about, okay, what specific things does the practice need? And that in our intentional life, that actually fleshes out the practice and gives us an opportunity to make it more real. I'll just mention that writing is a really great way to work with this, especially the more specific elements of intention. So something to play with. If you find this information valuable, please like and subscribe to get notifications of similar content.